We've all seen a movie or show with a haunted item, whether it's a painting whose eyes follow you or a creepy doll that you just can't get away from. But these items we see on screen may have been inspired by some real-life objects that have left their owners cursed. That's what I'll be covering on today's most amazing top 10 list. Kicking off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Crying Children paintings. These paintings were a series created by an Italian painter who was known as Giovanni Bragolin, but his real name was Bruno Amarillo. Bruno was born in Venice in 1911 and fought in World War II, which ended up being the inspiration for a lot of his paintings. During his time in the war, he saw a lot of suffering children, and this is where he got the idea for the series of the Crying Children paintings. After the paintings were sold, there began to be reports of fires in all of the places where the paintings were held. While this could have just been a strange coincidence, the weirdest part is that the paintings always remained intact while everything else around them was burned. This quickly became the most talked about thing and was on the front of every newspaper, and the paintings quickly gained the nickname Diablo. It caused these paintings to end up being replicated and mass-produced, but none of the replicas hold quite the same powers as the originals. Moving on to number 9, we have the stoop chair that once belonged to Thomas Busby. Thomas was a man who lived in Thirsk, North Yorkshire, and wasn't known as a very nice man, but he really loved his chair. In 1702, he found his father-in-law sitting in it, and it sparked an argument between the two. The father-in-law threatened to take his daughter back, and that's when Busby kicked him out of the house. After this, Busby ended up going over to the father-in-law's house and actually kills him with a hammer, and then hid the body in the woods. Of course, the body ended up being found, and this led to Busby getting convicted and sentenced to death. It is said that on his ride to his execution, he asked to stop by his favorite pub for a beer, and this request was fulfilled. Apparently, as he finished his drink, he said, "May sudden death come to anyone who dare sit in my chair." I really don't know what it is with this guy and his chair, but while it currently resides in the Thirsk Museum, it has been recorded that many terrible fates have been met by the people who have sat in the chair. In 1972, it was decided to hang the chair from the ceiling so that no one could sit in it again, which is probably for the best. Would you have sat in the chair if you had the chance? Moving on to number 8, we have the Anguished Man. While it is unknown who and when it was created, this painting is said to carry some kind of curse. It is rumored that whoever created it mixed his blood in with the oil paint, and when it was finished being created, he ended up committing suicide. When a woman who is referred to as Mrs. Robinson originally took possession of the painting after it was given to her by a family friend, she immediately knew that something was wrong with it. She ended up passing it along to her grandson Sean, who currently still owns the painting. The Robinson family has reported many different strange events that have happened in relation to the painting, such as hearing screams and groans coming from it. Sean has even uploaded videos to YouTube where he shows these paranormal events. I'm not sure why the family has decided to keep the painting, but I guess as long as it's not hurting anyone, it's okay. Continuing on to number 7, we have the real-life Annabelle doll. When I saw the 2014 Annabelle movie, I had no idea it was actually based on a real-life doll. The doll now resides inside of Warren's Occult Museum, where it absolutely belongs. There was a college student named Donna who received the doll as a gift from her mother, who had purchased it from an antique store. Donna and her roommate started to notice some pretty creepy things happening and swore that the doll was moving. They said it would appear in different places and positions throughout their apartment before things began to escalate. Donna began to find notes that said "help" in her apartment, and one night found the doll in a different position and covered in some sort of red substance. The girls then decided to contact a medium who solidified all of their beliefs and told them that the doll had been possessed by the spirit of someone who was killed in their apartment building. For some reason, the girls didn't immediately get rid of the doll, and the story goes that their friend Lou, who was at the girl's apartment, heard strange noises one night and went to investigate, and he was then attacked and killed by Annabelle. The girls finally contacted a priest who told them that the doll was possessed by a demon straight from hell, and then put them in contact with Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are paranormal investigators. They tried to do an exorcism on the doll, but it apparently failed, and now it is kept in a glass box in the museum. I didn't know that a glass box is the safest place for a paranormal item, but as long as it isn't hurting anyone, that's the important thing. Moving on to number 6, we have the ballista balls. A ballista was used in the Roman military, and it was kind of similar to a crossbow, but much larger and could shoot arrows and and stones. In 1989, there were some archaeologists that were working by the Israeli-Syrian border when they found these large stones close to what seemed to be the remains of a ballista, but around 1995 the stones ended up getting stolen, but it took a while for anyone to notice. Fast forward to 2015 and the same stones that were stolen ended up in the courtyard of the museum in Israel with a note left from the person who stole them. The note explained that ever since they took them, he had experienced terrible luck and believed the stones were the reason. He had a very successful business that suddenly began to fail after he took the stones, and later his family abandoned him and he was forced to get rid of almost all of his possessions to settle all of his debts so as to not go bankrupt. He mentioned that he believed the stones were cursed and that they were the root of all of his problems. Whether or not these stones are actually cursed or this was just some pretty heavy karma, I hope this guy has been able to get his life back on track. Halfway down the list in our number 5 spot we have the Goddess of Death statue, who is also known as the Woman from the Lem. This artifact made out of limestone was created sometime around 3500 BC and was found in Cyprus in 1878. Over the years it has belonged to many different families who all have been ruined and dismantled by death. After the first 6 years of ownership, all 7 members of the first family died. It then moved on to a second owner, and after 4 years, death began to come to him and his family. There was then a long period where it was unclaimed, but once the third family got a hold of it, several members of that family began to die as well. The third family ended up turning it over to the Royal Scottish Museum, where it thankfully still resides. Moving on to number 4, we have the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond was most likely cut from a mine in India and placed in a statue. It is a huge 45 carats and has a beautiful rare blue color. It is one of the most famous diamonds in the world, partially for its beauty, but also because of all of the mysterious happenings surrounding it. One day a thief stole the diamond and is said to have died quite soon after. From then on, anyone who owned or even touched the diamond was said to have met an ill fate. Whether it was suicide, a massacre, or a pack of wild dogs, the diamond seemed to have placed a curse on any and everyone who got near it. In 1958, it was fortunately donated to the Smithsonian and has been safe there ever since. I wonder if it got moved from the museum, if the curse would continue. Moving on to number 3, we have the DYBBUK box. The box, which was originally just a plain old wine box, is said to have been possessed by a DYBBUK, which in Jewish mythology is a malicious demon. The box began to gain attention in 2001 when it was being auctioned off on eBay. The seller explained that he had bought it at an estate sale of a woman who had survived the Holocaust. When he first opened the book, he found 2 1920s pennies, a lock of blonde hair bound with a cord, a lock of black or brown hair bound with a cord, a small statue engraved with the Hebrew word shalom, a small golden wine goblet, 1 dried rosebud, and a single candle holder with 4 octopus-shaped legs. Since he bought the box, he reported that strange things began happening, such as really horrific nightmares for him and anyone who had stayed around or touched the box, and when he gave the box to his mother as a birthday gift, she suffered a stroke the same day. The box ended up in the hands of Zach Bagan, who is a paranormal investigator, and it now resides in his haunted museum. The box also gained even more attention in 2018 when Post Malone touched it, and has apparently been dealing with the repercussions of that ever since. Coming on to number 2, we have the Dark Mirror. The Dark Mirror now belongs to the Traveling Museum of the Occult, who got it from the mirror's original owner. The mirror is said to show some pretty unsettling images when you stare into it. The original owner said that they purchased it from a psychic fair in the Columbus area and were shocked with the visions they saw when looking into the glass. Visitors to the Traveling Museum have claimed to see some pretty crazy things, such as their own corpse when they gaze into the mirror. It's pretty creepy stuff. In our number 1 spot today, we have the cursed portrait of Spanish military leader Bernardo de Galvez. Bernardo was born in Spain in 1746 and died under strange circumstances in 1786, and was famous for helping American colonies in the War of Independence. The painting is on display at the Galvez Hotel in Galveston, Texas, which is said to be one of the most haunted hotels, in part because of this portrait. The portrait is at the end of a hallway in the hotel, and guests have reported the eyes following their every move. People also report a cold or uncomfortable feeling when they get close to the painting, and this is said to be Bernardo's spirit. Some people even swear they can feel him following them around the hotel. It is also said that any picture you try and take of the portrait will come out blurry and distorted unless you ask Bernardo for permission. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. I'm your host, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Moving on to number 3, we have the DYBBUK box. I don't know, is that, Producer Chris, is that how you say that? Should I Google it? And do that little thing where it reads it out loud to me?
Yeah, just in case.
I don't want them to get mad at me.
DYBBUK. DYBBUK.
DYBBUK. DYBBUK. DYBBUK. That's what it's gonna be today. Not posty.